Hey guys, my name's Laurel,
Hi, I'm Heath.
Hi, I'm Zach.
and we did social cognitive theory. Let's see. Okay. Does this look right?
Yep.
Okay. So, social cognitive career theory. What is it? It focuses on the context that people place on events related to their careers and career decisions. Lint and colleagues created the theory to explain the three aspects of career development, and those would be the development of interests, the choice of educational and career options, and the performance and persistence in education and vocational fields. It evolved from social cognitive theory and career self-efficacy theory, which was talked about in our book a little bit, and we will expand on later in the presentation. And the theory stresses the importance of individual and contextual factors on the socio-cognitive mechanisms of self-efficacy, outcome expectations, and goals, and their influence on interests, actions, and performance. So we'll talk a little bit about the social cognitive theory that led to the development of this one. And it started with Albert Bandura and the Bobo doll experiment. Albert Bandura was a social cognitive psychologist and created what we now know as the social learning theory, which is based on operant and classical conditioning with the addition of observational learning. Three groups of children observed different interactions between an adult and the Bobo doll, and the children were then allowed to play with toys briefly before being told that the toys were special and reserved for other children. The idea was that this would put them into a more aggressive state, and by watching the way that the adults interacted with the doll, that they would potentially model that behavior. Results suggested that children who observed an adult interact aggressively with the doll prior to being told that they couldn't play with those toys, and that they made more imitative aggressive responses like hitting the doll or kicking it than children exposed to a non-aggressive adult or the control group. This was just used to show that children and people in general will model behavior and imitate the way that others react, and that this influences the way our behavior develops over time. And then the three socio-cognitive mechanisms, which are self-efficacy beliefs, outcome expectations, and goals. We'll each talk a little bit about those individually in more detail. And we're gonna play this video for y'all.
Self-efficacy theory is a way to explain motivation. What drives some people to put forth a lot of effort and others to simply sit back and not even try? This is Cindy. Cindy has certain beliefs about her own ability to learn and complete goals. These beliefs are very specific to a particular situation in a particular context. For example, suppose Cindy has been asked to create a spreadsheet to track her company's expenses, but she has never created a spreadsheet before. Will she tackle this task with gusto, confident in her ability to learn the software? Or will she approach the task with great anxiety and ultimately fail? Based on a person's belief system, learners will perform in certain ways. A basic principle of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy theory is a way to explain motivation. And suppose Cindy has been asked to create a spreadsheet to track her company's expenses, but she has never created a spreadsheet before. Will she tackle this task with gusto, confident in her ability to learn the software? Or will she approach the task with great anxiety and ultimately fail? Based on a person's belief system, learners will perform in certain ways. A basic principle of self-efficacy is that the higher a person's self-efficacy is, the more they believe they are capable of accomplishing a task. The lower their self-efficacy, the less capable they think they will be. People are less likely to attempt something with their full effort if their self-efficacy is lower for that task, because people tend to only try things that they believe they will be successful in. Self-efficacy is influenced by several factors. The first factor is a person's performance accomplishments. This is also referred to as personal mastery experiences. Performance accomplishments means how successful you have been with a task in the past. When encountering a challenge, a person assesses how they have done with a similar task. Suppose Cindy was asked to learn PowerPoint recently. If she worked hard on this task and was successful, then her self-efficacy for learning new computer programs is high, and she is more likely to put forth a strong effort again because she believes that she has the aptitude to learn Excel as well. If Cindy struggled with the PowerPoint and felt she was unable to master the program, then her self-efficacy for this type of task is very low, and she is less likely to persevere and work hard on learning Excel because she has already decided that she's incapable of learning it. Ironically, her attitude towards her own learning can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. She assumes she cannot do well, and then her lack of effort results in a poor result, reinforcing her belief that she cannot succeed in this type of task. On the other hand, if Cindy perceives learning PowerPoint as too difficult, but still put forth high effort and achieve success, then her self-efficacy will increase in this area, and she will be more likely to attack learning Excel with a high level of effort and focus. The second factor is vicarious experiences, which is when the learner observes other people's experiences with the task. They are more impacted if the person they observe is someone they perceive as more similar to themselves, such as a peer. For example, if Cindy has observed a coworker successfully navigating Excel, she is more likely to have a higher self-efficacy in regards to this task. Similarly, if Cindy saw her coworker struggling and failing at the task, Cindy's own self-efficacy will be lower because she is judging her own abilities based on what she observes is happening with her peer. Overall, vicarious experience is considered to be less powerful than performance accomplishments. The third factor is verbal persuasion, which is the impact that others' expectations can have on the learner. These expectations must be expressed verbally and generally take the form of a pep talk. If our learner is told, "I know you can do this," and perhaps given some helpful tips, their self-efficacy goes up. Coaching would be an example of verbal persuasion. People are led through suggestion into believing that they can cope successfully with what has overwhelmed them in the past. The effectiveness of verbal persuasion depends on how credible the learner feels the person encouraging them is. Additionally, verbal persuasion can also be negative, telling the learner they are incapable of the task, which will cause doubt in the learner and lower their self-efficacy. The fourth factor is physiological states, which is the emotional arousal a learner experiences and how they identify that arousal. Suppose Cindy has butterflies in her stomach, a physical sensation of arousal and discomfort. People rely partly on their state of physiological arousal to judge their anxiety and their vulnerability to stress. Because high arousal usually debilitates performance, individuals are more likely to expect failure if they are tense and agitated. So when Cindy has these sensations of butterflies in her stomach, how she interprets them is important. She might label these feelings as anxiety, which she might associate with failure, thus her self-efficacy would decrease. But she might also label these feelings as excitement or anticipation, which she might associate with achievement. In that case, her self-efficacy would increase. Overall, a person's self-efficacy impacts the level of goal challenge they set for themselves, the amount of effort they put forth, and their persistence in the face of difficulties. People with low self-efficacy shy away from difficult tasks, which they perceive as personal threats. They have low aspirations and weak commitment to the goals they choose to pursue. In contrast, those with high self-efficacy approach difficult tasks as challenges to be mastered rather than as threats to be avoided. They set themselves challenging goals and maintain strong commitment to them. Self-efficacy has relevance to many areas of research, but it is especially relevant in the area of educational research. Since higher self-efficacy is associated with greater persistence, effort, and intrinsic interest in academic learning and performance, educators have sought to discover how best to increase students' self-efficacy. Researchers have found that students' beliefs about their own abilities to learn determine their aspirations, level of motivation, and academic accomplishments. Teachers' beliefs in their own ability to teach also affects how successful their students will be. Similarly, impacting faculty's beliefs about their collective efficacy influences school-level achievement. Researchers have also found that parents positively impact a child's self-efficacy when they provide an environment that stimulates youngsters' curiosity and allows for mastery experiences. Peers also impact self-efficacy because students and networks tend to be similar to one another, which enhances the likelihood of influence by modeling. Self-efficacy is sometimes confused with other terms, such as self-esteem or self-concept. The difference is that those terms deal with the general feelings about topics, and self-efficacy is about an attitude towards a specific task in a particular context. The key word is specific. A person's self-concept might be, I'm pretty good at math, but a person's self-efficacy is about their belief in their ability for a specific task. For example, I can totally figure out this math worksheet. And that is self-efficacy in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.
So I'm just gonna, I guess, mimic some of what the video already talked about. But the first thing I want to say is, as discussed in the video, beliefs are derived from personal accomplishments, observation of others, social persuasion, and psychological and emotional states. So people make determinations about their abilities to organize and carry out certain actions in order to attain certain types of performance. So do we believe in ourselves? Can we accomplish this task? Am I able to function in this idea of the job I have? Therefore, in relation to career self-efficacy, beliefs can predict academic and career interests. A person's belief about their capability in a certain professional area can lead to their development of interest. So even if they don't necessarily have an objective lens about what they are good and what they are not good at, it can still direct where their career goes. And self-efficacy varies from person to person as well as within a person. So different occupational domains will evoke different reactions from the same person, as the behaviors involved in executing the day-to-day task will vary from accounting to teaching to sales to whatever exactly you're interested in. And a person's confidence level and their ability to effectively and proudly execute those tasks impacts their likelihood to pursue certain careers. And this theory hypothesizes that people are likely to become interested in, choose to pursue, and perform better at activities in which they have strong self-efficacy beliefs, as long as they have necessary skills and environmental supports to pursue these activities. So this is kind of like in the video where they talk about how other people can influence your decisions and what career you choose. So if your family's always done one certain thing in a career, say they own a small business, you may have a strong self-efficacy that you can succeed in that as well, because those are the people you're surrounding yourself with, because they're family and they have an influence on you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that is playing to your strengths. So this is where career counseling comes in, and recognizing people's backgrounds and the different effects that, that their belief in themselves can have on their academic and career choices. And this is just a little bit of the same, but it reflects personal agency, as well as one's effort, expenditure, persistence, thought patterns, and emotional reactions when you're confronted by obstacles. So it not only affects your career decisions, but the way you react to things when you're confronted with them, whether that be good or bad. And human ability is dynamic, it's not fixed. So competent performance requires competent skills, but also a strong sense of efficacy in order to make use of those skills. So what self-efficacy looks like for me or you today may not look the same in the future. And it certainly will change over time, especially for children and teenagers, which is why career counseling can be so important. And SCCT yields that people act and make career choices based not only on self-efficacy, but the consequences of their actions and potential outcomes. So this is where we get into the other aspect of the theory, where we talk about outcome expectations.
And going into outcome expectations, where self-efficacy asks, can I do this? Outcome expectations asks, if I do this, what will happen? And the outcome expectations examine the three main outcomes to a career decision. Those outcomes being the physical changes or the physical outcomes, the social outcomes, and the self-evaluative outcomes for that. So when it comes to physical outcomes, those are obviously monetary gains, asset gains, or possibly even a burden. So physical outcomes are the changes that will happen in regards to financial or burden benefits to a career decision. So examples of that could include, I will have to pay for any special education for this career. Will I need to pay any for certain certifications that I may have? For the physical outcomes, it's also important to consider the financial gain of decisions. So will a raise be a possibility? Will your long-term goals be met when it comes to financial stability? So moving on to the next set of outcomes that are discussed are the social outcomes. So these can be, approval from the people that mean the most to you, so friends and family. It could be positive or negative outcomes that you experience socially when you discuss your career choices or your career movements. As humans, we want approval from those around us and for those who we care deeply for, and it is important that we feel that approval from those. We want our families to feel proud of our career choices as well as the road it takes us to get there from these accomplishments, which leads me to the final section of outcome expectations, which is self-evaluative or self-satisfaction. So you always hear the term, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So it's most important of all of them, because we are the ones that live with our career decisions the most. We are able to look at ourselves in the mirror each morning to go to our jobs and our careers and find peace and happiness in the things that we do. While some may say that statement, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, some will say that's not necessarily the case. But the goal of the phrase is that you need to be happy with the career path that you've chosen and the road that you're taking. Otherwise, it'll be difficult to find meaning. So in the next slide, I wanted to talk about a little bit of a TED Talk that we're going to watch with Charlie Parker as the speaker. He talks about the differences between how we are as kids and how we were thinking in our career, and what our people say now when they're asked as an adult. What are some of the differences between the two? So take what you know now about the 3 stages of outcome expectations and keep those in mind as you watch this video.
I want to ask you a question. That question is, what do you want to be? How many times have you been asked that question? What do you want to be? I was asked it plenty of times when I was growing up. I mean, if you asked me when I was 4 years old, my answer would have been, I'm going to be a pirate. Can you remember what you wanted to be when you were 4 years old? I appreciate that was a long time ago and you probably can't. So I did a little research. This is my sister. She teaches a class of 3 to 4 year olds at primary school in London. She asked them for me the same question, what do you want to be? She wrote down their answers and then she gave them to me. Those answers were, first one, I'm going to be a princess when I grow up. I think we've all heard that one before. Someone said yes. Second one was, I'm going to be the tooth fairy. I mean, I don't know if that's more or less realistic than the first one, to be honest. Third one, Iron Man. Going to take a stab in the dark that was inspired by movies that you watched. Fourth one, I'm going to be on the X Factor. Didn't have that when I was a kid. And the last, but certainly not the least, I'm going to kill all the baddies by chopping them up. I was a little bit worried when I heard that last one. Watch him, he's trouble. Now, I know you're probably thinking, why did you choose to ask children this question? Their answers are pretty unrealistic, right? I mean, some of them are outright fairy tales. I mean, how many people do you know who have been on the X Factor? Exactly. See, what didn't interest me was the answers themselves. It was how the children decided to answer the question itself. See, I spotted a pattern as soon as I wrote these down. You can probably see it because I've actually highlighted it for you to see it. Each and every one of these kids, well, almost all of these kids, answered with the words, I'm going to be. They didn't say, I want to be. They didn't say, maybe. They answered with absolute conviction. That kid is going to be Iron Man. There's no doubt about it. Now, I'm willing to bet, metaphorically, not physically, because I don't have the money to pay all you back if I lose. I'm willing to bet that when I opened this talk with the question, what do you want to be? You answered inside your mind with the words, I want to be. In fact, let's be more specific. Some of you didn't answer with the words, I want to be. Some of you answered with the words, I don't know. Don't know. It's a very common answer. So what's it say about you? Does it say you don't know what you want in life? Maybe. Maybe it says you're just not sure that the thing you want to be is realistic enough to just say, I'm going to be that thing. Maybe you're just superstitious. You think if you said, I'm going to be a movie star, you jinx any chance of you doing it altogether. So let's see what happened when I asked this question to adults instead of children. To do this, I used a website called Reddit. A lot of you may know it. It's similar to social media pages like Facebook and Twitter. You can do all the same things. Difference is you can post anonymously. And that was the important part of my research, that they could post anonymously. See, I believe if someone can post anonymously, they're not worrying about other people's opinions of the thing they're about to say. That means they can be honest. So in theory, if you're anonymous, you can be honest. So there's the question. Gave it a little bit more context than I gave the children because it is the internet and you know what the internet is like. So the first serious answer I received was, I want to be a small farmer. Use horses instead of machines. trade produce with the neighbors, tend to the bees, power my house with solar energy. You know, slowly and quietly make the world a better place. Unfortunately, that'll be next to impossible to start. With industrialized agriculture and that, but a dream's a dream, right? Second one, an animator. I've been in love with cartoons my entire life. The only problem is I suck at art. I don't know if that's Ronnie Corbett or Michael Caine I'm trying there, but I'm going to awkwardly keep doing it. Third one, I want to affect the world in a positive way on a large scale. How I get there is not important to me. Sorry, I deleted that because I didn't think my answer was specific or relevant enough. See, the adults' answers had a pattern similar to those of the children. Not the same pattern, but a pattern nonetheless. See, if you take out the context of each of the answers, like I did with the children's, you start to notice they actually all gave me the same answer. They all started differently, they're all worded differently, but they all came to the same conclusion. So what I did is I paraphrased each answer so you can see the pattern I saw. The first answer again, I want to be a small farmer, but I can't. Second one, I want to be an animator, but I can't. Third one, I want to affect the world in a positive way, but I shouldn't have said that. Now you see, each and every one of these people convinced me that they can't be what they want to be. I'm a complete stranger to these guys, and they were anonymous, yet they still decided to be pessimistic with their answers. And what's that say about them? Does it say what they want to be isn't realistic? Perhaps. What confused me was, wait a second, the 4-year-old said he was going to be Iron Man. But this guy, the first guy, said he wanted to be a farmer, and then later said it was a dream. He said it was impossible, a farmer.
Had some technical difficulties, but I think we've got it back on track now and should be able to get the video going again. I don't know why it's doing that.
So it's heavily influenced by things like the people who raised you, the people you're raised with. It's also heavily influenced by your own experiences. I mean, we all know the phrase, you learn from your mistakes, right? The idea is that you made a mistake once, well, you did a thing once, which you now labeled a mistake because you didn't enjoy the outcome of that thing. So in the future, you're not going to do that thing again because you now consider it a mistake. That's a very small example of what social conditioning is. You've decided not to do this thing again because of an experience. And I have a theory. My theory is as a child gets older, and with age, in ratio to their age, their expectations drop. So as you get older, your expectations drop. Now, this I say theoretically, but I also say it as a victim of this cycle. I've been through this cycle hundreds of times growing up. In fact, I had so many dreams of grandeur, I threw them away just as quickly. This is me at the age of 13. I know what you're thinking. This guy is a pioneer of fashion. Yes, my hair is red and blue at the same time. That'll trend in 2 years' time, you're welcome. At this age, I ditched the pirate dream by now, and I decided I'm going to be a violinist. I had the violin, I had the teacher, I had the lessons. I was set to go. In fact, it was better than that. My violin lessons ran over my English class. I mean, it wasn't just an aspiring career choice, it was a get out of jail free card. This was awesome. However, my English teacher found out why I was truanting her class. I was off learning to play the violin, so she had my class moved. And this is the hard part, grab tissues if you have them. She had my violin lessons moved to lunchtime. This was my favorite time. How was I supposed to give up snackables to go pluck some strings in some weird ass closet with some lady? I wasn't gonna do that. So without further ado, I gave up on dream number 2. So let's fast forward to when I was sweet 16. Like a fine wine, my fashion sense gets better with age. Looking like someone who dropped out of skateboarding school, I happened to be single. And because I was single, I also had a lot of spare time on my hands. And with the spare time, I decided to play a lot of video games, as a lot of us do. Now, I was quite a creative and quite imaginative child growing up. I like to think I still am, hopefully. And I used to create stories in my head, fictional stories with characters and arcs and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, I play a lot of video games. I like making stories. Why don't I combine these two? I can make a career out there. I can be a video games designer. It's genius. However, I'm sure, as a lot of you know, if you're going into software programming, you have to learn a thing called programs. So the first thing that I had to learn was one called BASIC. And I don't know if you can tell by the name, it was one of the easy ones, BASIC. This was the single most depressing thing I'd ever done in my life. And this was step one on a 100-step ladder. How on earth was I going to climb that ladder if I couldn't get past the first step? I had to give this dream up. That's dream 3, dead. So let's fast forward to when I was 17. My head was literally in the sand. I had so many dreams growing up, and I'd thrown them all away. I had university leering over my shoulder saying, "Hey, Charlie, what do you want to be? What do you want to do?" I couldn't answer that question. I needed help. But who was going to help me? Careers advisor, my parents, my friends, none of them could really help me, could they? Because they didn't know what I wanted. Only I know what I wanted. But the problem is I couldn't vocalize it. So what I needed to do was help myself. And instead of telling you my experience in the next part of this story, I want to bring you guys with me. I want you guys to go on what I call a visualization exercise, because this is what I did a lot throughout my life. And it might just help you answer the question we started with. But to do this, I've invented a couple of characters just to explain the way your mind works. I've characterized them. It's a visual journey, so you want to bring them with you on this journey. The first character is your inner voice. I like this guy. This is the guy who tells you what you enjoy most and what you enjoy least. He's that part of your mind who tells you that classical music is soothing. It's that part of your mind who says electronic music is energizing and heights is scary and kittens are cute. This is the guy who holds the keys to everything that you enjoy, i.e., he holds the keys to what it is you want, i.e., he holds the keys to what it is you want to be. However, the only reason you can't communicate with this guy is there's another guy blocking you, blocking your communication channel with your inner voice. This is called your inner doubt. This guy is a jerk. I don't like this guy. This is the guy who creates all your mental barriers. He creates the excuses that stops you doing those things you want to enjoy. He's the guy who tells you classical music is dorky. He's the guy who tells you electronic music is samey, heights, dangerous, kittens, expensive. Him and the inner voice are in constant collision with each other. For that reason and that reason alone, for the purpose of this visualization exercise we're about to go on, I want you to ignore your inner doubt. Forget about him. He's not coming. Inner voice, yes. Inner doubt, no. So, close your eyes if it helps you visualize. You're looking at yourself in a mirror. Make eye contact with yourself. It's a little bit awkward, but that's you, so it's okay. This is a special mirror. It's not a reflection of yourself you're actually looking at. In fact, it's a portal to an alternate dimension. This is another you. This guy's leading a slightly different life from yours. I want you to extract your mind from your own head, and I want you to float through that mirror. Your mind is going inside that of the other you. You're on the other side of the mirror now, looking back at yourself. Can you see yourself? Now, this universe that you're now in is exactly identical to ours, except for one thing that's different. At the end of this talk, a radio broadcast is heard. On this radio broadcast, we hear the world's going to end. A meteor's going to crash onto the surface of the earth and wipe out everything living or dead. We can't escape. We can't dig underground and hide. We can't escape in a rocket. We're all doomed. Sorry, this is really grim, but it does have a point. Now, what I want you to do is not think about what you're going to do with your final 2 weeks. I want you to think about what you're going to miss because of your untimely death. Think about it. That's 2 weeks' time. You're going to miss the launch of the next Star Wars movie. That's pretty disappointing, right? Now, use this visualization exercise as a template. You can create another 100 scenarios just like it. And the point is to find out what it is that you enjoy most in life. I did this a lot when I was 17 years old, and I needed to. See, I pictured myself as a billionaire. What would happen if I had £1 billion? You know that question, what would happen if you won the lottery? I spent the money and I bought a film studio so I could bring those stories I always had to life, you know, through film. I pictured myself being famous. What did I do? I was famous for making films again. And see, there's this recurring theme through all my little visualizations was that I wanted to make films. And therein lied the answer. I wanted to make films, and you know what? I knew that for a lot longer than I let on. But the only problem was my inner doubt was telling me, that was impossible. He was telling me that was a fairy tale dream. Much like the guy on Reddit who thought being a farmer was a dream, I thought the same about filmmaking. And now here we are, 24-year-old Charlie stands before you. You know what I do? I run my own independent film company. I did it. I'm now being an effective part of the film industry. I'm bringing my stories to life. This is what I always wanted to do. I just ignored the fact that I wanted to do it because I doubted myself. And once you ignore your inner doubt and focus on your inner voice, you're able to realize, why not just chase what it is I want? Why worry about whether or not it's possible? Why not just do it? When you think about having 2 weeks left on this earth, you realize, I'm going to die. So what do you regret when you die? I regretted not ever chasing up this dream. So I want to finish off this talk with a quotation that I think summarizes it better than I could in words. The number one reason most people don't get what they want is because they don't know what they want. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if the sooner you can communicate with your inner voice and make it your outer voice, ignoring your inner doubt, the sooner you can answer that question, what do you want to be? And the sooner you can answer that question, what do you want to be, the sooner you too can take your dreams and turn them into realities. Thank you.
Cool. So let's break down what Parker had to say about everything. So Parker goes through his life changes and his career goals with us and talks about an experiment he did with some kids that his sister taught and asked them what they wanted to be. Now, we got some pretty outlandish answers from the young kids, but I wanted to read the part where Parker mentioned that the kids were always saying, I'm going to, or this is what I want to do. You know, there was no doubt in what their answers were. The next part of the experiment is that Parker discussed the same question with adults similar to our age through Reddit anonymously. And then I wanted to point out that since it was anonymous, and he mentioned in the video that because it was anonymous, people were willing to share. And that is something I kind of wanted to touch on and say that kind of goes back into the social aspect to outcome expectations, because it's almost like you're trying to hide. So you're afraid of what socially people are going to think about what your dreams are. So there's that kind of aspect I wanted to touch on a little bit. And then, let me figure out where I'm going at. So he wouldn't give the genuine answer. So that related back to social expectation. When he reads off the answers, there are some doubts in their answers, which, obviously comes to, as they've aged, they have been exposed to different things throughout their life that's caused some doubt, some self-efficacy issues when it comes to that, or concerns of social factors when it comes to their outcome expectations. So another note I wanted to point out is that Parker mentions that it is okay to not be sure of what you want to do all the time. I believe that in self-efficacy and the social outcomes pressure us into making decisions for us on a career path as soon as possible. And, he mentioned it in when he was 17, he had university in his background saying, what do you want to do? I can help you do whatever you need to do. Meanwhile, we are starting to see an upward trend in university settings where people are changing their career or their majors several times throughout their time at university. And I think it's something that goes into self-efficacy and the social outcomes, our self-effectiveness for that. So one of the last notes I wanted to make about the TED Talk is that how Parker brings up the importance of the voice inside of your mind and how important it is to have those reasons to keep that voice positive. This reflects back on the importance of self-evaluativeness. And are you confident in the career decisions that you're making? Are you confident in the road that you're taking? Are you embarrassed? Are you excited to talk to about your career to others? Or are you allowing your self-doubt to overcome you in these conversations? And if your self-doubt is ruling over your thoughts, what are you doing to suppress that inner doubt moving forward to reach your career goals? And I think as for career counselors, it's important to take all of those into consideration when it comes to talking with someone. I really liked what he had to say about the activity that he had everyone do to close their eyes, and I imagine they only had 2 weeks left, or what are you going to regret missing the most? So I think it all kind of circles back into our theory So yeah. So when it comes to self-efficacy, outcome expectations, and the goals that Zach's about to talk about, I felt that this TED Talk does a good job highlighting some of those points. And I hope you find the video informative and have a better understanding of the outcome expectations and how they relate to self-efficacy.
So like Heath was saying, I'm going to cover the goals section. And so basically kind of like a short kind of intro into what the goals are. There's two types of goals within this theory. There's choice goals to engage in a particular activity, or it could be used as to perform a given activity, or to pursue a given academic major would be a good example of that. So like for us, we are pursuing this particular major, and then that plays into the performance goals, which is to attain a certain level of performance. And so an example could be to receive an A in a particular class. So for instance, we could say that we are trying to pursue this particular major or master's degree, and then for that performance we want to get an A in this class. And so for setting goals allows people to organize, guide their own behavior, and sustain the goals in the absence of positive feedback and despite any setbacks. And so kind of like that was like a brief description of what the goals are. And so the goals tie back into self-efficacy and outcome expectations. And so it kind of makes it almost like a circle where they're all very intertwined and they all rely on each other. And so people tend to set goals that are consistent with the views of their own capabilities and outcomes they expect from themselves. So it all depends on how they believe in themselves and what they expect, and then that is the goals that they can set and hopefully achieve. And then lastly, the success or failure of reaching one's goals becomes important information that helps to alter the self-efficacy beliefs or the outcome expectations. So kind of like what I was just saying earlier, they're all very intertwined. And so with goals, if you succeed, like in the video that we watched earlier, it can strengthen your self-efficacy belief or the outcome expectations, and you're going to expect a little bit more from yourself, and you're going to have higher self-esteem. And then the opposite effect if you were to fail things, whatever that goal would be, if you fail it, it could lower the self-expectation and lower the outcome expectations.
All right, so the next part of our presentation, talking about the next part of the social cognitive theory, career theory, is the three interlocking models is a major part of this. So the model of interest development, the model of career choice, and the model of performance.
For these three models, they all are very similar to like the last three. They'll all be they kind of flow off of each other. One builds off of the other. And so for the model of interest development, people's patterns of likes, dislikes, and indifferences on various occupations and careers or career relevant activities. So that's kind of just like a brief definition of how the interests kind of develop. And interest development is fluid up until late adolescence, barring any kind of small things that could happen. Usually it's as you're younger, like we saw in the TED Talk video, kids want to be astronauts or they want to be Iron Man, whatever it is that they can dream of. And then as we grow older, we kind of, I guess, get more realistic interests, and that kind of slowly goes away. And so with continued exposure, practice, and feedback, people begin to form performance standards, a sense of self-efficacy, and expectations about the outcomes. And so with more practice, the better you're going to get. Like you would do anything. You're never going to learn something unless you spend the time to and put forth the effort to learn it or to grow further into it. And people are most likely to develop interest activities in that they feel comfortable and that they expect positive outcomes. And so, again, this is just another thing that kind of ties into what we've previously talked about. And further development leads to mastery or failure experiences of the activities. And so, kind of like what I stated before, the more exposure, the more practice, the more time that you're spending in this activity or in this career field, whatever it is that you're trying to do, there's more opportunity for mastery, and hopefully less opportunity for failure. But again, that can depend on your exposure with it. And then for the next model, the career choice, just a brief definition: sometimes influenced more directly and potently by self-efficacy beliefs, outcome expectations, or environmental behavior or variables than they are by interest. Even though this one does build off of the interest model, there can be other variables that we'll kind of learn very quickly about that could change your career choice. And so the career choice arises largely through self-efficacy and outcome expectations. So this could be career-related interests, encourage educational and occupational choice goals. And so, like as an example for us, we're going through these courses for this master to get this specific career field. And so basically intentions to pursue a particular career path, kind of like what I just said, especially if they are made clear, specific, strongly held, stated publicly, and supported by friends or family. This is going to allow you to exceed and have the ability to spend the more time in this practice, and that can help you grow and allow for better mastery and less failure. Choice goals are make it more likely that people will take actions to achieve their goals. And so kind of going back to the goals, if you actually get to be able to choose the goals or the career, any activity that you want to, you can go out and if you choose it, it'll be more likely that you'll master it. But there is a downside. Like I said before, unfortunately, many adolescents and adults are not able to follow their interests. And so the choice making of these people is constrained by economic need, family pressure, or educational limitations. And so that could be a number of anything that could possibly come up. Maybe it's a kid who strives for higher education, but unfortunately their parents or all of them cannot afford to send this kid to higher education, and they unfortunately have to take a different type of career choice. And so like it says in the definition, environmental variables can also play a big factor into this. And so for next, I think Heath is going to be talking about the performance model and finish out the model aspect of the theory.
Yeah, so the model of performance, it's broadly defined and is used to explain achievement relative to goals that are selected or personally adapted. The model incorporates the roles of the outcome expectations in complementing self-efficacy and creates a link between the performance attainments, self-efficacy, and outcome expectations. So if you look at the model of performance, we still see that each model, they do kind of run off of each other a little bit with some different aspects to each of them. Going along with what Bandura's take on the model of performance, this touches on how self-efficacy has a direct effect on performance as well as a non-direct effect on goals and actions. I do want to note that the best path for the model when when ability and / past performances leads to our self-efficacy, then directly goes into our outcome expectations, then leads to the performance goals and sub-goals, which follow the social cognitive mechanisms we mentioned earlier in our presentation. So now, not every career choice or even regular choices follow the exact route. It is similar to how, as kids, we learned how to properly plan a paper or like a story. We use the little charts and things like that. So not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to go through every step to have a successful model. But as adults, most of the time we sort of skip some of those steps, and we often pay for not properly planning. So that model shows the steps that can be missed or avoided. The model shows how the cycle can be reused in future decisions when it comes to cycles back to the performance level, persistence, and then start of ability and past performances.
And so now I'll talk a little bit about possible interventions. So what do we do with this information as a potential career counselor? How do I help someone? Or even just working in higher education, working with students, working with other people? What do we do for our personal lives? How do we help other people? The first step for many can be simply increasing self-efficacy. It's not as simple as it seems, but increasing someone's belief in themselves and their ability can dramatically affect their confidence related to their career. Promoting aspirations and interests at a young age among children and adolescents, and encouraging exploratory behavior is important. Expanding career choice options and eliminating narrow viewpoints. A lot of kids get stuck in these ideas that vocational interests or non-traditional careers aren't for them, or even kids get stuck in the our power went out and we lost Wi-Fi, so it's been a bit of a mess. I apologize. I think where we were at when we had technical difficulties was that expanding career choices for teenagers and kids and adults alike can be really, really important, because people get stuck in this idea that they have to stick to a non-traditional career or a vocational opportunity, or they have to stick to university, and they don't consider both. And that it's important to consider both, because it can be important to help you find your way and the right career choice for you. It's also important to foster positive but realistic outcome expectations. Similar to what was talked about in the TED Talk, it's great to have your dream, but you also have to make sure that your career goal is realistic for what you're able to achieve. Setting specific goals through worksheets can be really, really important and helpful, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more when I do the activity. And encouraging healthy coping skills, and building support systems, and strengthening your performance skills and bettering decision-making skills, and being very specific, like I said earlier, in goal setting is essentially really, really important, because you can have great ideas and struggle to put them into fruition. And so writing goals down has been shown to be really helpful for people actually achieving them. And so the next thing we're going to do is a quick case study. Some of you might be familiar with SMART goals. They help. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. They help people be really direct in small goals and in larger goals. And so we're going to look at Chandler Bing, who is from Friends. Some of you probably know him. He is an IT procurement manager, specializing in statistical analysis and data reconfiguration. He's originally began his current position as a temp, but has been with the company for 5 years. He's been super stagnant in his role, doesn't enjoy his job anymore, and feels he deserves a promotion, but isn't sure how to achieve this goal. These SMART goals can be used in clinical therapy settings or for school counselors, but are also really good for career counselors. And so a SMART goal for Chandler Bing would be to earn a promotion to finance office manager by completing the required training for the position within 3 months and applying for the role by the end of the next business quarter. So this is a good example to follow on how you hit every single aspect of a SMART goal. So the goal is specific. You obtain a promotion to the finance office manager. It's meaningful and it's clear. Complete necessary training for the position, file the application, and earn the promotion. He'll be able to track his progress and his success over time. Attainable, have the correct credentials and degree requirements, so he has the resources necessary to attain his goal, and it's realistic. And then relevant, 5 years of experience in the field. His goal aligns with his experience and the company's overarching growth and goals. and it's time limited. So there is a deadline. He wants to achieve it in 3 months. This would be something that you could do yourself to achieve goals, or something that you could do with a client. Okay, and then implications for career counselors. And then anyone in higher education, really. Counselors should use this model to stress the importance of the learning processes and experience that happen over time. There are things that happen that shape our career path, and it's not always going to look pretty. And, you know, accepting this and learning from your mistakes and learning from your successes is really important. It can be useful to allow the client to examine how their career related to self-efficacy came to be, as well as what barriers the client has faced, because you know, are influenced by your environment and the decisions you make. The theory promotes the importance of the client's gender, race, sexual orientation, level of ability or disability, and social class on the client's self-efficacy. So all of these things, like I said before, are barriers that you may face, or privileges that you may have in your career, and it's important to be aware of those. And it can be helpful to examine previous, current, and future performance levels and relate this to your self-efficacy. So you may not realize that your performance in a certain skill is related to your belief in your ability to do a certain skill, because it may come as second nature. So recognizing your strengths and weaknesses. And examining positive and realistic expectations for the client, and help the client find a way to reach these goals. That's kind of been the overarching thing of what we talked about on how you can use this yourself, or you can use it with clients. In conclusion, we hope this has been informative, but also helpful as you go forward in your career. I think this is something that you can use in any amount of higher education, not just as a career counselor, and you can use it for yourself or for others. Being aware of self-efficacy, outcome expectations, and goal setting can be important for personal growth. And we feel like this is really helpful whether you work in admissions, financial aid, administrative support, advising. No matter what you're doing, this can be something that you keep in mind to help students or help coworkers or whatever. Everything's really relevant and can help you in your work life and your home life. So thank you guys for watching.